Imagine this. You're standing outside the VIP room at an exclusive golf club, about to surprise your CEO husband with champagne to celebrate his big deal, when you hear him laughing with his friends. This joke of a marriage won't last another year. She's nowhere near my level. The men inside erupted in laughter, congratulating him on his exit strategy. My hand froze on the door handle, champagne bottle trembling. What would you do? Run? Cry? Pretend you heard nothing? I did none of those things. I walked in, set my wedding ring on their marble table, and said, "Why wait a year? Let's end it today." My name is Josephine Lancaster. I'm 32 years old, and today I'll tell you how those 5 words led to my husband's arrest at his own shareholders' meeting. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. What Michael didn't know was that his best friend had been recording everything for 3 years. I met Michael 5 years ago when I was just an intern at Tech Vault Financial. Fresh out of UC Berkeley with my MBA, I was eager, ambitious, but admittedly naive about corporate politics. Michael was already a rising star, senior vice president at 33, with that dangerous combination of Harvard pedigree and Silicon Valley connections. He pursued me relentlessly, not the casual office flirtation I'd expected from someone at his level, but an intense, focused campaign. Flowers delivered to my cramped cubicle, handwritten notes slipped into my project folders. Weekend trips to Napa, where he'd stare into my eyes and say things like, "You're the only one who sees the real me, not just the title." 8 months later, we were married at the St. Regis. I signed the prenup without really reading it. My first mistake. Michael's lawyer assured me it was standard protection for both parties. I was so in love, so certain we were building an empire together that I didn't even request independent legal counsel. The changes started slowly. First, it was the subtle suggestions about my career. "Why push so hard for that promotion, Joe? I make enough for both of us." Then came the missed dinners, the weekend strategy sessions with board members, the golf club memberships where wives were technically allowed, but clearly unwelcome. I watched other executives' wives, former doctors, lawyers, engineers, slowly disappear into the background of their husbands' ambitions. I promised myself I'd be different. I kept working, kept pushing, but somehow remained stuck at marketing coordinator while Michael ascended to CEO last year. The loneliness was suffocating. Our penthouse felt more like a museum than a home, all sharp edges and cold surfaces, chosen by his interior designer without asking my opinion. The real humiliation began at company events. Michael would introduce me as my wife. No name, no acknowledgement of my role at the company, just an accessory to his success. At the quarterly investor dinner last month, he actually steered me toward the wives table while discussing a marketing campaign I had personally developed. "Josephine, sweetheart, we're talking about complex financial instruments here. Why don't you join the ladies? They're discussing the charity gala." The other executives' wives looked at me with a mixture of pity and recognition. We all knew the script: smile, nod, don't make waves. But I caught whispers in the bathroom, saw the side glances when Michael would publicly compare me to other CEOs' wives. "Brad's wife just published her 3rd novel," he announced at one dinner. And here's Joe, still trying to figure out Excel spreadsheets. The laughter was polite, but cutting. Strange things started happening. Anonymous emails appeared in my inbox. "You deserve better than this." A post-it note on my car windshield. "He's not who you think he is." I dismissed them as office gossip, maybe jealousy from other employees. Then Michael's friend Daniel started acting differently. Daniel Smith, his best friend since Harvard, his personal lawyer, his golf buddy. Suddenly, he couldn't meet my eyes at dinner parties. Once after Michael had spent 10 minutes mocking my presentation skills in front of 12 people, Daniel whispered as he passed, "I'm sorry, Josephine. This isn't right." I began noticing other things. Credit card statements for restaurants I'd never been to, charges at jewelry stores when I hadn't received anything in years. When I asked, Michael's face would darken. "Are you questioning how I spend my money? The money that keeps you in designer clothes?" I wasn't even wearing designer clothes. I'd been buying from Target for 2 years. The financial mysteries deepened 3 months ago. I found a stack of documents in Michael's home office, purely by accident while looking for printer paper. Bank statements from accounts I didn't know existed. Wire transfers to companies with names like MJL Holdings and Presidio Ventures. When I brought them up at dinner, Michael's reaction was immediate and harsh. His hand slammed the table so hard our wine glasses jumped. "Those are corporate accounts, Josephine. Complex restructuring for tax efficiency. You wouldn't understand the intricacies of international finance." "I have an MBA, Michael." From a state school, this is Harvard-level strategy. But I understood more than he thought. The amounts were staggering. 400,000 here, 750,000 there, all transferred exactly 2 days before our joint account statements arrived. I started taking photos with my phone, building a folder I labeled recipes in case he checked. Daniel's behavior grew more erratic. At Michael's birthday dinner, after his fourth whiskey, he pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Josephine, have you ever actually read your prenup? Like, really read it?" "Why are you asking?" He looked toward the dining room where Michael was holding court, then back at me. "There's a clause about financial transparency. Both parties have to fully disclose assets. If someone hides money—" He trailed off as Michael appeared in the doorway. "What are you two whispering about?" Michael's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just complimenting Joe on the dinner," Daniel said quickly, but his hands were shaking. That night, Michael was cold, distant. "I don't like you talking to Daniel alone. He's been having some personal problems, drinking too much, making up stories." But Daniel hadn't seemed drunk to me. He'd seemed scared. Last Tuesday started like any other day, except Michael was unusually cheerful at breakfast. He actually kissed my forehead, something he hadn't done in months. "Big day today, Joe. The Morrison deal is finally closing. $50 million acquisition." He straightened his Hermes tie in the hallway mirror. "The board will be ecstatic. Stock prices will soar. We should celebrate." "We? Come to the club at 3, Presidio Heights. I'll be in the VIP room with the partners. We can have champagne after." It was the first time he'd invited me anywhere in 6 months. My heart, stupidly, actually fluttered with hope. Maybe things could change. Maybe the deal would relieve his stress, bring back the man I married. I spent my lunch break at Nordstrom, buying a new dress with my personal credit card. The joint cards had been temporarily frozen for security reasons, according to Michael. Navy blue, conservative, but elegant. The kind of outfit the other executives' wives wore. I arrived at Presidio Heights at 2:45, thinking I'd surprise him by being early. The valet knew me, offered a sympathetic smile that I didn't understand at the time. The club was quieter than usual, most members out on the course enjoying the rare San Francisco sunshine. I could hear voices from the VIP room as I approached. Michael's laugh, distinctive and loud. Then other voices, his usual crew. Brad Thompson from Morgan Stanley, James Chen from the venture capital firm, David Park, another Harvard buddy. I was about to knock when I heard my name. "How's the wife situation?" Brad asked. Michael's response stopped me cold. "I doubt this joke of a marriage will last another year." I pressed closer to the door, my hand frozen on the handle. Michael's voice carried clearly through the mahogany. "She's nowhere near my level, never was. I mean, look at her, still a coordinator after 5 years? My secretary has more ambition." The laughter that followed felt like physical blows. These men knew me. They'd eaten at my table, complimented my cooking, smiled at me at every company event. So why stay married? That was James, always practical. The timeline: 14 more months until the prenup modification clause expires. After 5 years, she gets nothing if I initiate. Right now, she'd get 20%. Michael paused, and I heard ice clinking in a glass. "I've already moved 70% of my liquid assets offshore. Cayman accounts she'll never find. By the time I file, there'll be nothing left to split." "Brilliant," Brad laughed. "But what if she figures it out?" "Josephine, please. She still thinks our joint account is our only account. She doesn't even know I bought the Atherton property last year, $3.2 million titled under MJL Holdings." More laughter. "Besides, she's too dependent. Where would she go? What would she do? Her salary barely covers her car payment." "The car you bought her," David added. "Leased, in my name, like everything else in her life." My legs were shaking. 5 years. 5 years of my life, and I was just a joke to him. A temporary inconvenience with an expiration date. "The best part," Michael continued, "she still thinks we're trying for a baby, keeps talking about nursery colors. I got a vasectomy 2 years ago." The room erupted in laughter, cruel, vicious laughter that would echo in my nightmares for months to come. I didn't plan what happened next. My hand turned the doorknob before my brain could stop it. The room fell silent as I stepped inside. 5 men in their Armani suits, glasses of whiskey suspended midway to their lips. Michael's face went through a spectacular transformation, red to white to gray in 3 seconds flat. "Joe, you're early." "No, I'm exactly on time." My voice came out steady, calm, the voice I used in board presentations. "Please continue." You were explaining how I'm a joke. Baby, you misunderstood. The vasectomy? Did I misunderstand that too? Brad and James exchanged glances, already calculating their distance from this explosion. David actually took a step backward. Or the Cayman accounts? The Atherton property? Which part did I misunderstand, Michael? He tried to reach for me, switching to damage control mode. Josephine, let's discuss this at home. You're being emotional. Emotional? I laughed, and it must have sounded unhinged because James flinched. No, Michael. Emotional was crying myself to sleep, wondering what I did wrong. This is clarity. I looked at each of them, these masters of the universe who'd found my pain so entertaining. Gentlemen, thank you for the education. Michael, you asked how long this joke of a marriage would last. I pulled off my wedding ring, the 4-carat diamond he'd chosen to impress his colleagues rather than please me, and set it on the marble table with a decisive click. Why wait a year? Let's end it today. The silence was beautiful. Then I turned to leave, my phone already buzzing in my purse. As I walked out, I heard Michael's voice, high and panicked. Josephine, get back here! You can't just… But I was already gone. My hands didn't start shaking until I reached my car. I sat in the driver's seat, watching the valets pretend not to notice the tears streaming down my face. My phone had been vibrating nonstop. Michael calling, texting, the desperation escalating with each message. We need to talk. You're overreacting. Come back now! You'll regret this. I was about to turn the phone off when a text from an unknown number appeared. Mrs. Lancaster, you deserve to know the truth. Check your email. A friend. My personal email had one new message. No subject line. The sender was just a string of numbers. But there were attachments. Dozens of them. I opened the first file. It was an audio recording, dated 3 years ago. Michael's voice, crystal clear. I only married her for the optics. Young, pretty, eager to please. The board loves a family man. The second file was a PDF, bank statements from accounts I'd never seen. The third, a property deed for the Atherton house he'd mentioned. The fourth made me pull over to the side of the road. It was a video. Michael and a woman I didn't recognize at a restaurant I'd found on our credit card statements. The timestamp was my birthday last year, the night he'd said he was stuck in Shanghai. My phone rang. Unknown number. Josephine? The voice was familiar but distorted, like they were using some kind of voice changer. Did you get the files? Who is this? Someone who's watched Michael destroy people for too long. You're not the first, but you could be the last. I don't understand. You will. Check the last attachment. And Josephine, get a lawyer, tonight. The line went dead. Friends, you're watching my story, Josephine Lancaster's story. If you've ever felt undervalued in a relationship, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell. Comment below and tell me what you think I should do next. And don't skip ahead, because the message I received is about to change everything. Your support means the world to me. Let's continue. The last attachment was a simple text document with an address. Moscone Center Starbucks, 7 p.m., come alone. I knew I was probably walking into something dangerous, but I was beyond caring. What else could I lose? I'd already lost everything I thought I had. The coffee shop was nearly empty. I spotted him immediately. Daniel Smith, hunched over a laptop in the corner, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses indoors. He looked up when I approached, and I saw dark circles under his eyes. It was you, I said, sitting down. The voice changer was ridiculous, by the way. He pulled off the sunglasses, and I was shocked by the guilt written across his face. I'm sorry, Josephine. For everything, for staying silent, for being a coward. Why now? Daniel pushed a flash drive across the table. 3 years of recordings, documents, evidence, everything Michael made me help him hide. His hands were trembling. I'm a lawyer, Josephine. I took an oath, but I've been helping him commit fraud, hide assets, destroy people's lives. Then why did you? He owns me, knows things about my past, my family, but watching him laugh about you today, Daniel's voice cracked. My sister went through something similar. Her husband hid everything, left her with nothing. She never recovered. He opened his laptop, showing me file after file. Michael's been planning this from the beginning. The marriage was supposed to last 3 years, just long enough to secure the Singapore merger. You were chosen, Josephine. Young, ambitious, but naive, no powerful family connections. Chosen. He had a list. You were number 3. The other 2 had better lawyers who spotted the prenup tricks. My coffee sat untouched, growing cold. What am I supposed to do with this? Fight back. Legally, I'll testify if needed. Daniel had given me 3 names. Sarah Mitchell's was at the top, circled twice with a note. She's the one Michael fears. Her office was on the 47th floor of the Transamerica building, all glass and steel, with a view of the bay. Sarah herself was nothing like I'd expected. Early 40s, warm smile, pictures of her kids on the desk, but her eyes were sharp as surgical instruments. Daniel called me, she said, gesturing for me to sit. I've been waiting 3 years for someone to bring me evidence against Michael Lancaster. You know him? I know his type, and I know his prenup. I've seen that template before. Marcus Ashford wrote it, correct? At my nod, she smiled. Marcus is brilliant, but predictable. There's always one weakness in his contracts. She pulled out my prenup, already tagged with colored tabs. Section 47B, Financial Disclosure Clause. Both parties must fully disclose all assets at time of marriage and maintain transparency throughout. Failure to do so voids the entire agreement. But how do we prove? With this. She held up Daniel's flash drive. I've reviewed the preliminary files. Michael didn't just hide assets, Josephine. He committed tax fraud, wire fraud, and violated about 12 SEC regulations. The prenup is the least of his problems. My head was spinning. What about the 14-month timeline? Irrelevant if we can prove fraud. In California, financial misconduct during marriage means you could get up to 65% of all marital assets, including those hidden offshore. She leaned forward. But I need to know, are you ready for war? Because Michael will not go quietly. I thought about 5 years of humiliation, the joke of a marriage, the vasectomy, the laughter. I'm ready. Sarah introduced me to Robert Kim the next morning. If Sarah was a surgical knife, Robert was a microscope, quiet, methodical, and absolutely relentless. His office looked like a crime scene investigation unit, with 3 monitors displaying spreadsheets that might as well have been hieroglyphics. Mrs. Lancaster, what do you know about your husband's financial structure? Apparently nothing, I admitted. Robert nodded without judgment. Most spouses don't. That's what they count on. He pulled up a complex diagram on his center screen. Based on Daniel's files, your husband has been running a sophisticated shell game. 17 accounts across 4 countries, 5 shell companies, 2 trust funds you're not named on. The numbers started appearing on screen. My stomach dropped. Is that 2.3 million? That's just the Cayman accounts. There's another 800,000 in Singapore, 400,000 in Switzerland. Robert adjusted his glasses. Your husband has been siphoning money from your joint assets for 4 years. Every bonus, every stock option that should have been community property. How did I not see this? You weren't supposed to. Look here. He showed me our joint account statements. See these transfers? Always $9,999, just under the reporting limit. Always 2 days before your statement date. He knew you only checked monthly. Robert clicked through more files, his expression darkening. There's something else. These consultant payments to MJL Holdings? That's his mistress's company. He's been funding her lifestyle with marital assets. I felt numb. The woman in the restaurant video? Monica Jeffries. She's been on his payroll for 2 years, officially as a marketing consultant. She's never done a day of marketing in her life. Can we prove all this in court? Robert smiled for the first time. Mrs. Lancaster, by the time I'm done, will have proven every penny. The unexpected call came while I was reviewing documents with Sarah. Patricia Wong, CFO of TechVault and Michael's supposed ally, wanted to meet. Secretly. We met at a dim sum restaurant in Chinatown, far from the financial district's prying eyes. Patricia looked exhausted, stress etched in every line of her face. I know what you're doing, she said without preamble, and I want to help. Why would you? Because Michael's a cancer on this company. The board knows it, but he's been too clever to catch. Until now. She slid a folder across the table. Internal audit reports. Discrepancies I've been documenting for 2 years. I couldn't act alone. He would have destroyed me. But with what you have, I opened the folder. The numbers were staggering. He's been embezzling from the company, disguising it as legitimate expenses. Private jets for personal trips filed as client meetings. That Atherton property, purchased with company funds as an executive retreat, that's never been used for business. The board doesn't know? Patricia laughed bitterly. 3 board members suspect. They've been waiting for proof. Richard Dalton, Jennifer Wu, Marcus Bell. They're ready to act if given cause. She leaned forward. The quarterly shareholders meeting is in 2 weeks. Michael's planning to announce the Morrison acquisition. The $50 million deal? Except Morrison doesn't know Michael's been inflating our numbers. If this fraud comes out, the deal dies, and Michael loses everything. Patricia's smile was sharp. The board will have no choice but to remove him. Publicly. You've planned this. I've hoped for this. You're the catalyst we needed. She stood to leave, then paused. Josephine? He's been monitoring your phone and email. Use only what Sarah provides from now on. Michael's retaliation came swift and vicious. First, the credit cards. All frozen due to suspicious activity. Then, the car. I walked out of Sarah's office to find it being towed. Lease violation, the driver said, not meeting my eyes. But the cruelest cut came that evening. I'd been staying at a hotel, too afraid to go back to the penthouse. A knock at my door. A process server with papers. Michael was suing me for defamation and corporate espionage. This is intimidation, Sarah said when I called her, panicking. He's trying to scare you into backing down. It won't work. The text messages started at midnight. You're making a mistake. Come home, we can work this out. You have no idea who you're fighting. I know where you are. The last one made my blood freeze. I called hotel security, changed rooms, didn't sleep. The next morning, Michael played his emotional card. A massive bouquet arrived at Sarah's office. White roses. My former favorites. The card read, Remember Napa? We can have that again. Just come home. Then came the email to my work account. Somehow, he'd gotten through the new security Sarah had set up. Photos of us from happier times. Our wedding. Our first anniversary. The trip to Paris where he'd promised me the world. Don't let him manipulate you, Sarah warned. This is textbook. When threats don't work, they try nostalgia. But I didn't need her warning. Each photo just reminded me of another lie. In our wedding photo, I could now see Daniel in the background, already looking uncomfortable. In Paris, I remembered now how he'd spent most of the trip on urgent calls, probably with Monica. Let him escalate, Sarah said. Every threat is evidence. Daniel's conscience, once unleashed, couldn't stop confessing. He showed up at Sarah's office with 2 banker's boxes and a haunted expression. There's more, he said simply, and so much more. The first box contained employment records. Michael destroyed 2 careers last year, Daniel explained, pulling out files. Jennifer Martinez and David Young, they discovered discrepancies in the books. Michael fabricated performance issues, had them fired, then blackballed them in the industry. Jennifer Martinez had been senior analyst, brilliant according to her reviews, until she'd questioned certain transactions. Within a month, she was terminated for consistent underperformance that had never existed before. She has 2 kids, Daniel said quietly. Lost her house. Michael laughed about it at the club. The second box was worse. The Morrison deal isn't what it seems, Daniel revealed. Michael's been feeding Morrison false data, inflated user numbers, fabricated revenue projections. When the truth comes out post-acquisition, Morrison will sue. The company will collapse. Hundreds of employees will lose everything. We have to stop this, I said. There's one more thing. Daniel pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is a transfer authorization from 6 months ago. Michael moved $800,000 from the employee pension fund to cover his trading losses. He replaced it 2 weeks later, but for those 2 weeks, he'd stolen from every employee's retirement. Robert Kim, who'd been silent throughout, finally spoke. This is securities fraud, federal crime, FBI territory. Sarah was already on her phone. Patricia, we need an emergency board meeting before the shareholders' gathering. I stared at the evidence spread across the conference table. My husband wasn't just a liar and a cheater. He was a criminal who'd destroyed lives for sport. How did I not see this? Daniel met my eyes. Because you loved him, and he counted on that. Judge Catherine Reynolds reviewed our emergency filing at 7 a.m., an unheard of accommodation that Sarah had somehow arranged. The courthouse was nearly empty, our footsteps echoing in the marble hallways. Your Honor, Sarah began, we're requesting an immediate asset freeze and temporary restraining order. Mr. Lancaster is actively moving money offshore and has threatened my client. Judge Reynolds, 70 years old with eyes that had seen every type of marital deception, reviewed the evidence Robert had compiled. Her expression grew increasingly stern as she flipped through pages of bank transfers, shell company documentation, and Michael's threatening messages. Mr. Kim, can you verify these financial documents? Robert stood. Every transaction is documented, Your Honor. I've traced $2.3 million in hidden assets, with another $500,000 moved in the last 48 hours after Mrs. Lancaster filed for separation. And these threats, I handed over my phone, showed the messages, the tracking implications. He knows where I am at all times, Your Honor. I'm scared. Judge Reynolds looked at Michael's attorney, Marcus Ashford, who'd been summoned for the emergency hearing. Mr. Ashford, your client has some serious explaining to do. Your Honor, these are unsubstantiated allegations. With documented evidence, the judge interrupted, I'm granting the emergency freeze on all assets, including offshore accounts. Mr. Lancaster is ordered to surrender his passport within 24 hours and maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Mrs. Lancaster. Your Honor, Marcus protested. Furthermore, Judge Reynolds continued, I'm ordering a full forensic accounting audit. Mr. Lancaster will provide all financial records within 72 hours or face contempt charges. She signed the order with decisive strokes. Mrs. Lancaster, you'll have your day in court. Until then, your husband won't move a penny without this court's permission. Michael would find out about the freeze when he tried to use his cards at lunch. The war room at Sarah's office looked like a financial crimes unit, whiteboards covered with timelines, transactions, connections. Patricia Wong had joined our team officially, bringing 3 more board members with her. The shareholders' meeting is in 3 days, Patricia announced. Michael's planning to present the Morrison deal as his crowning achievement. The board will vote immediately after. Except we'll be there first, Sarah said, pointing to the agenda. I filed an emergency injunction requiring full disclosure before any vote. The judge granted it this morning. Richard Dalton, the board chairman, looked grim. We've called an executive session for 1 hour before the main meeting. Michael doesn't know. We'll review your evidence then. Is it enough? I asked. The pension fund theft alone is enough, Jennifer Wu replied. But with everything else, he's finished. Daniel had been quiet, but now spoke up. There's something else. Michael's planning to announce something personal at the meeting. He's been telling people you had a breakdown, that you're unstable. He's laying groundwork to discredit you. Let him, Sarah said coldly. We have his own words on tape admitting to the marriage fraud. Hard to claim she's crazy when he's on record laughing about his deception. Robert pulled up his final report. Total hidden assets, $3.1 million. Documented fraud against the company, $800,000. Estimated damages to fired employees, $2 million in lost wages and benefits. This doesn't include the potential Morrison lawsuit. What about Monica? I asked. Patricia smiled. She's been subpoenaed. Turns out she doesn't want to go down with Michael's ship. She's agreed to testify about the payments she received. Everything was falling into place. 3 days until the meeting that would end Michael's empire. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked me privately. I've been ready since Presidio Heights. I stood at the window of my hotel room, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. Tomorrow would change everything. My phone buzzed with messages of support. Jennifer Martinez, the analyst Michael had destroyed, wished me strength. David Jung sent a simple, thank you for standing up. 5 years of marriage, and it had all been a lie. I thought about the woman I'd been at 27, so eager to believe in the fairy tale. Michael had chosen well, ambitious enough to look good on his arm, naive enough to trust completely. The prenup sat on my desk, marked with Sarah's annotations. So many red flags I'd missed. Clauses that seemed protective, but were actually traps. Requirements that favored him at every turn. I'd signed it in his lawyer's office with champagne and promises of forever. An email popped up from Patricia. Morrison's CEO will be at tomorrow's meeting. He has no idea what Michael's been hiding. Another from Robert. Final audit complete. It's worse than we thought. $3.4 million total. I opened my laptop and looked at the presentation Sarah had prepared. Clean, devastating, irrefutable. Each slide a nail in Michael's professional coffin. The audio clips Daniel had provided were the worst. Michael laughing about the stupid investors who believed his numbers. A knock at my door made me freeze. But it was just room service. Sarah had ordered dinner, knowing I'd forget to eat. A note was attached. Fuel up. Tomorrow you take back your life. I thought about texting Michael one last time, giving him a chance to come clean. But what was the point? He'd had 5 years to be honest. Tomorrow, in front of everyone who mattered to him, he'd finally face consequences. I practiced my single line one more time. Why wait a year? Let's end it today. Tomorrow I'd say it again, but this time in front of his entire world. If you're still following my story, please like and share this with anyone who needs to hear it. The next part is the moment I'd been waiting for. The shareholders' meeting that would change everything. Michael had no idea what was coming. Comment justice if you want to see abusers face consequences. Thank you all for your incredible support. It means more than you know. Now, let's continue to the day that ended Michael's empire. The morning of the shareholders' meeting arrived gray and foggy, fitting for a funeral. Michael's professional funeral. I dressed carefully, the same navy suit I'd worn to my first day at Tech Vault, but now it felt like armor. My phone buzzed at 7 a.m. Michael. I know what you're planning. Don't do this. We can still work it out. Then another. You're destroying everything we built. And finally, you'll regret this for the rest of your life. I forwarded them all to Sarah without responding. Let him panic. Sarah met me in the lobby of the Marriott Marquis, where the meeting would be held. She had a full team, 2 junior associates, Robert with his laptops, and Daniel looking pale but determined. The board's executive session starts in 1 hour, she said. They'll review everything before Michael even arrives. Patricia texted. He's here, Armani suit, acting like he owns the world. No idea what's coming. We took the service elevator to avoid running into him. The conference room was already filling with shareholders, investors, reporters from TechCrunch and the Financial Times. Michael had made sure this meeting would be highly publicized to celebrate his Morrison triumph. Perfect. Richard Dalton nodded as we entered the boardroom. 12 board members sat around the mahogany table, faces serious. The presentation was already loaded on the screen. Mrs. Lancaster, Richard began formally. The board has reviewed the preliminary evidence. We're prepared to act, but we need to be certain. Is everything documented? Robert opened his laptop. Every transaction, every recording, every crime. Through the glass wall, I could see Michael in the main conference hall, shaking hands, laughing, playing the Golden Boy CEO. In exactly 43 minutes, his world would implode. Then let's begin, Richard said. The boardroom fell silent as Robert's presentation began. Slide after slide of damning evidence. Wire transfers to shell companies, the Cayman accounts, the pension fund theft that made Jennifer Wu gasp audibly. This is securities fraud, Marcus Bell said, his face pale. It gets worse, Patricia said, taking over. The Morrison deal is based on falsified data. Our real user numbers are 40% lower than what Michael reported. When Morrison discovers this post-acquisition, they'll sue us into bankruptcy. Richard Dalton's jaw tightened. How long has this been going on? 3 years minimum, Robert replied. Total exposure to the company, approximately $12 million in potential lawsuits and SEC fines. Then Daniel stood up. His hands shook as he opened his laptop. I need to play something for you. Michael's voice filled the room, crystal clear from a recording made 2 weeks ago. The board's full of idiots. They believe whatever I feed them. After Morrison, I'll have enough leverage to replace half of them with my own people. The board members' faces went from shocked to furious. There's more, Daniel continued, his voice stronger now. Michael's been planning to gut the company post-merger, lay off 60% of staff, offshore operations, and cash out within 18 months. Jennifer Wu slammed her hand on the table. We have to stop this, now. Motion to remove Michael Lancaster as CEO, effective immediately, Richard announced. Second, said 3 voices simultaneously. All in favor? 12 hands raised without hesitation. Motion carried unanimously. Richard turned to me. Mrs. Lancaster, we owe you an apology and a debt of gratitude. Would you be willing to present this to the shareholders? I thought about Michael out there, preening before his audience, unaware his professional death warrant had just been signed. It would be my pleasure. The main conference hall was packed with over 200 people. Michael stood at the podium, his smile radiant, confidence radiating from every pore. The PowerPoint behind him displayed Tech Vault Financial, the next chapter, in bold letters. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders and partners, he began, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. Today marks a historic moment for Tech Vault. The Morrison acquisition will position us as the dominant force in West Coast fintech. Applause rippled through the room. I watched from the side entrance with Sarah and the board members, waiting. $50 million, Michael continued, clicking to a slide, showing projected revenues. But more than that, it's validation of our vision, our strategy, our leadership. He was really laying it on thick. Several investors were nodding, impressed. Under my guidance, TechVault has grown 300% in 3 years. Our user base has exploded. Our revenue streams have diversified. We are, quite simply, unstoppable. Morrison's CEO, Thomas Morrison himself, sat in the front row, smiling broadly. He had no idea he was about to dodge a $50 million bullet. Michael clicked to his next slide, photos of the company's growth, with him at the center of every image. I've dedicated everything to this company, sacrificed personally in ways you can't imagine. That was my cue. Sarah nodded. Some of you may have heard rumors about my personal life, Michael continued, his tone shifting to concerned sincerity. Yes, my wife and I are having difficulties. The pressure of success, the demands of leadership, they take a toll. But I want to assure you. The side door opened. I walked in with the entire board of directors behind me. Michael's words died in his throat. The smile froze on his face like a mask. Hello, Michael, I said clearly. Mind if we interrupt? The room buzzed with confusion as I walked to the podium. Michael tried to recover, forcing a laugh. Josephine, this isn't the time. I disagree, Richard Dalton said, stepping forward. This is exactly the time. Ladies and gentlemen, the board has just concluded an emergency session regarding serious allegations against Mr. Lancaster. Michael's face went from red to white. Richard, what is this? This, Sarah said, stepping up with a stack of documents, is a court-ordered asset freeze based on evidence of financial fraud, embezzlement, and securities violations. Gasps rippled through the audience. Phones appeared. Reporters started recording. These are lies, Michael shouted. Maswa. My wife is having a breakdown. Really? I pulled out my phone, connected it to the sound system. Let's hear what you really think about this marriage. His voice filled the room. I doubt this joke of a marriage will last another year. She's nowhere near my level, then. She doesn't even know I bought the Atherton property, $3.2 million titled under MJL Holdings. And finally, the best part? She still thinks we're trying for a baby. I got a vasectomy 2 years ago. The room was dead silent. Someone in the back whispered, Jesus Christ. Thomas Morrison stood up slowly, his face dark with rage. Michael, are these financial projections accurate? Patricia stepped forward. No, Mr. Morrison. The real numbers are 40% lower. Your $50 million would have bought you a lawsuit and bankruptcy. You son of a... Morrison started toward Michael, but his lawyers held him back. Security, Richard called out. 2 guards appeared immediately. Please escort Mr. Lancaster from the building. He's no longer employed by TechVault Financial. Michael looked at me, desperation replacing arrogance. Josephine, please. Why wait a year, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Let's end it today. As security moved toward Michael, he turned on Daniel with vicious fury. You betrayed me after everything I've done for you? Daniel stood up slowly, his face calm for the first time in months. No, Michael, I finally did the right thing. He walked to the front, addressing the stunned audience. My name is Daniel Smith. I've been Michael Lancaster's personal attorney for 6 years, and I've been documenting his crimes for the last 3. Michael lunged forward, but security held him back. You're finished, Daniel. I'll destroy you. You'll never practice law again. Probably not, Daniel agreed quietly. But at least I'll be able to sleep at night. He pulled out a USB drive. This contains 3 years of recordings, documents, and evidence. Michael didn't just steal from his wife. He stole from this company, from all of you. The room erupted, shareholders shouting, reporters pushing forward, cameras flashing. Daniel continued, his voice stronger. Jennifer Martinez and David Jung were fired for discovering discrepancies. The pension fund was raided to cover Michael's trading losses. The books have been cooked for 2 years. Lies! Michael screamed, struggling against security. This is conspiracy! My wife poisoned him against me! Your wife? Daniel laughed bitterly. The woman you chose specifically because she had no powerful connections? The woman you called a temporary inconvenience? She didn't poison me, Michael. You did. Every time you laughed about destroying someone's life. Every time you made me cover up another crime. He turned to me. I'm sorry it took me so long to find my courage, Josephine. You deserve better, from both of us. Richard Dalton raised his voice over the chaos. The board has voted unanimously. Michael Lancaster is terminated effective immediately. The authorities have been notified. 2 FBI agents entered through the main door. The FBI agents approached Michael with practiced calm. Mr. Lancaster, we need you to come with us for questioning regarding securities fraud and embezzlement. I want my lawyer, Michael shouted, then realized his lawyer was the one who'd exposed him. Not you, Daniel! Marcus! Where's Marcus? Marcus Ashford stood up from the audience, his face carefully neutral. I'm no longer representing you, Michael. Conflict of interest? He glanced at me. I'll be handling the divorce proceedings. For Mrs. Lancaster. The betrayal on Michael's face was almost pitiful. Almost. Richard Dalton called for order. We need to vote on the emergency measures. All in favor of a complete forensic audit? Every hand in the room went up. All in favor of canceling the Morrison acquisition? Again, unanimous. All in favor of pursuing full legal action against Michael Lancaster? The vote was instant and decisive. Thomas Morrison stood up. Tech Vault has dodged a bullet today. Mrs. Lancaster, the board, thank you for your courage. He looked at Michael with disgust. I've seen corporate fraud before, but this, using your own wife as a prop while robbing everyone blind? You're pathetic. Michael's composure finally shattered completely. You don't understand. I built this company. I am Tech Vault. Without me, you're nothing. Nothing. Actually, Patricia said calmly, without you, we're solvent. Initial audit shows the company will recover once we eliminate your creative accounting. As the FBI agents cuffed him, Michael looked at me one last time. I gave you everything. No, I said clearly. You took everything, but I'm taking it back. The room watched in stunned silence as Michael Lancaster, the golden boy of Silicon Valley fintech, was led out in handcuffs. Cameras captured every second. By evening, it would be on every financial news outlet in the country. After the FBI left with Michael, the room slowly emptied until only the board, senior staff, and my legal team remained. Richard Dalton called an impromptu meeting right there in the conference hall. Mrs. Lancaster, he began formally, the board owes you a profound apology. We failed in our oversight. We allowed Michael to create a toxic culture that hurt you and many others. Jennifer Wu added, your courage in coming forward has saved this company from catastrophic failure. The Morrison lawsuit alone would have destroyed us. Which brings us to a proposal, Patricia said, smiling for the first time in hours. The marketing director position has been vacant for 6 months. Michael kept rejecting candidates. The board would like to offer it to you. I blinked, stunned. But I'm just a coordinator? No, Richard interrupted firmly. You're the person who developed the Southeast Asia expansion strategy that Michael took credit for. Patricia showed us the real files. You're the one who created the Millennial Engagement campaign that increased user acquisition by 30. Patricia nodded. I've been watching you for 3 years, Josephine. Michael kept you down because he knew you were better than him. Your ideas, which he stole, generated millions in revenue. The salary is $180,000 to start, Jennifer added, plus equity compensation and a seat on the Strategic Planning Committee. You want me to stay at the company where my ex-husband? We want you to help rebuild it, Richard said. Transform it into what it should have been, a place where talent is recognized, where integrity matters. I looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly, at Daniel, who managed a small smile despite everything, at Patricia, who'd been my secret ally all along. Can I have a few days to think about it? Take all the time you need, Richard. Said, you've earned that and so much more. Within 2 hours, the story was everywhere. Tech CEO arrested at own shareholders meeting led the Financial Times. Wife exposes Silicon Valley executive's fraud empire dominated TechCrunch. My phone exploded with calls from reporters, producers, podcast hosts. Sarah fielded them all with practiced efficiency. Mrs. Lancaster will not be commenting beyond the official statement, she repeated endlessly. But the videos were already viral. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation. Michael's voice playing through the speakers. Joke of a marriage had been clipped and shared thousands of times. The image of him being led away in handcuffs became an instant meme. By evening, more victims started coming forward. Jennifer Martinez gave an exclusive interview to CNN about her wrongful termination. David Young published a Medium article detailing the harassment he'd faced for questioning irregularities. 3 former employees filed lawsuits. Michael's carefully crafted image imploded in real time. The golf club released a statement that his membership had been revoked. The Young Entrepreneurs Foundation, where he'd been a board member, distanced themselves immediately. His Harvard alumni profile mysteriously disappeared. But the most satisfying moment came when Monica Jeffries, his mistress, sold her story to a tabloid. She revealed everything. The promises he'd made, the lies he'd told her about our marriage being over for years, the payments she'd received. She even provided photos of the Atherton house he'd bought for their future together. He told me his wife was mentally unstable, Monica told the reporter, that she was holding him hostage in a loveless marriage. I actually felt sorry for him. God, I was an idiot. Daniel texted me that evening. Michael's lawyer says he wants to negotiate. He's scared. Good, I replied. He should be. The empire Michael had built on lies had collapsed in a single afternoon. The legal avalanche began immediately. By day 3, Michael faced charges from multiple agencies. The SEC filed civil charges for securities fraud. The IRS opened an investigation that quickly uncovered $400,000 in unpaid taxes. The Department of Labor investigated the pension fund theft. Sarah called me with updates every few hours. The prenup is completely void. Financial fraud nullifies every clause. In California, you're entitled to at least 65% of marital assets, plus damages. How much are we talking about? After recovering the hidden accounts, about $1.8 million for you, minimum. The penthouse is yours. It was purchased with marital funds. His car collection, the wine collection, the art, all community property. But the criminal charges were what truly destroyed him. The FBI had built an airtight case: wire fraud, tax evasion, embezzlement, each carrying potential years in federal prison. Marcus Ashford, now representing me in the divorce, was ruthlessly efficient. Michael's trying to negotiate a plea deal with the feds. He needs liquid assets for legal fees. He's desperate to settle the divorce quickly. What's he offering? Everything. The full $1.8 million, the penthouse, your choice of assets. He just wants to keep enough for his defense. The irony was delicious. The prenup he'd crafted to leave me with nothing had become worthless, and now he was begging for scraps from the fortune he'd tried to hide. 3 former employees filed civil suits totaling $2 million. The state of California filed charges for violation of corporate fiduciary duty. Even the golf club sued him for unpaid dues and damage to their reputation. At this rate, Sarah said, he'll be lucky to keep the Honda Civic he bought in college. The man who'd called me nowhere near his level was now facing complete financial and social annihilation. The divorce proceedings took place in a small courtroom, far from the grandeur Michael had always craved. He looked diminished, the Armani replaced with a basic suit, the confident smirk gone, his face aged 10 years and 3 weeks. Judge Helen Martinez reviewed the settlement agreement with careful attention. Mr. Lancaster, you're agreeing to transfer 65% of all marital assets to Mrs. Lancaster? Yes, Your Honor, Michael mumbled. Including the $2.3 million recovered from offshore accounts? Yes. The San Francisco penthouse valued at $1.2 million? Yes. Each yes seemed to physically hurt him. Mrs. Lancaster, you're accepting this settlement of approximately $1.8 million in liquid assets, plus the real estate and investment portfolio? I am, Your Honor. Judge Martinez looked at Michael over her glasses. Mr. Lancaster, I've reviewed the evidence of financial fraud during your marriage. You're fortunate Mrs. Lancaster isn't pursuing punitive damages. This court has seen many cases of financial abuse, but the systematic deception here is particularly egregious. Michael's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, keeping him from responding. The vasectomy while telling your wife you were trying for children? The secret properties? The mockery of your marriage to friends? The judge shook her head. Sir, you didn't just violate your fiduciary duty. You violated the basic trust that marriage requires. She signed the decree with decisive strokes. Divorce granted. Mrs. Lancaster, you're restored to your maiden name if you choose. I'll keep Lancaster, I said clearly. I earned it. As we left the courthouse, Michael tried one last manipulation. Joe, I'm sorry. I loved you in my way. No, I cut him off. You loved what I represented. Young, naive, controllable, but that woman doesn't exist anymore. He had nothing left to say. I accepted the marketing director position on a Monday morning, exactly 1 month after the shareholders' meeting. The executive floor felt different now, lighter, cleaner, like windows had been opened after years of stale air. Patricia, now interim CEO, welcomed me with genuine warmth. Your office is ready. Corner suite, actually. Better view than Michael's old one. The transformation at Tech Vault was remarkable. With honest numbers and transparent operations, investor confidence returned quickly. The employees who'd lived in fear of Michael's arbitrary firings were suddenly innovative, engaged, alive. In my first all-hands meeting, I addressed the elephant in the room directly. Yes, I'm Michael Lancaster's ex-wife. Yes, it's weird for all of us. But I'm here because I believe in what this company can become without him. The applause was genuine. Jennifer Martinez was rehired with back pay and a promotion. David Young returned as senior director of analytics. Others who'd been wronged were offered their positions back with compensation packages. Within 3 months, our user engagement increased by 22%, using strategies I'd developed years ago but had been dismissed as too ambitious by Michael. The Southeast Asia expansion I'd originally designed finally launched, exceeding projections by 40%. You know what the difference is? Patricia told me during a board meeting. People actually trust us now. They know we're not cooking the books or hiding anything. The culture shift was profound. No more fear-based management, no more stolen ideas, no more toxic masculinity masquerading as aggressive leadership. Richard Dalton pulled me aside after one particularly successful quarter. The board is discussing making you permanent CMO next year. You've earned it. I thought about the woman who'd stood outside that golf club, shaking with humiliation. She never could have imagined this. The social fallout was swift and complete. Michael's carefully curated network evaporated overnight. The golf club members who'd laughed at his jokes about our marriage suddenly claimed they'd always felt uncomfortable with his behavior. Brad Thompson, who'd found my humiliation so amusing, was caught in his own scandal when his wife found my story inspiring enough to hire a forensic accountant. Turns out Michael wasn't the only one with hidden assets. The most unexpected support came from other women in Silicon Valley. My inbox filled with stories. CEOs' wives, female executives, startup founders who'd been diminished, mocked, cheated. Many had suffered in silence. My public stand had given them permission to speak. A tech executive's wife wrote, "You gave me the courage to look at my own prenup. Found the same loopholes. Filed yesterday." A female founder messaged, "My business partner has been treating me exactly like Michael treated you. Not anymore." The media attention was overwhelming, but Sarah managed it brilliantly. We chose one exclusive interview with a female financial journalist who'd been following corporate fraud for decades. The piece, titled "The Real Cost of Silicon Valley's Toxic Culture," won a Polk Award. But the most satisfying vindication came from an unexpected source. 3 of Michael's Harvard Business School classmates reached out to apologize. They'd known about his behavior for years, but had stayed silent. "We should have warned you," one said. "He did this to another woman in business school. We all knew, and we all just let it happen." The boys' club that had protected Michael for so long was finally being held accountable. Not legally, perhaps, but socially, which for men who valued their reputations above all else was almost worse. 6 months after his arrest, Michael's trial began. The federal courthouse was packed with reporters, former employees, and curiosity seekers. I attended only once to see him take the stand. He looked hollow. The golden boy was gone, replaced by a gray-faced man in an ill-fitting suit. His lawyer had advised him to appear humble, but Michael couldn't quite manage it. Arrogance leaked through every carefully coached answer. The prosecutor was methodical, presenting Daniel's recordings, Robert's forensic analysis, the testimonies of those he'd wronged. When they played the golf club recording, several jury members visibly recoiled. Michael tried to explain it away. "It was just talk, locker room banter. I loved my wife." "Then why the vasectomy?" the prosecutor asked. "Why the hidden assets? Why the systematic plan to abandon her after 14 months? Each question chipped away at his facade until nothing remained but the truth. He was a narcissist who'd seen people as tools for his advancement. The verdict was swift, guilty on all counts. Securities fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. The sentence, 8 to 12 years federal prison, plus $3 million in fines and restitution. As they led him away, Michael looked at me across the courtroom. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd thought I'd married. Confused, lost finally understanding what he'd thrown away. Daniel, who'd testified despite knowing it would end his legal career, stood beside me. "Do you feel vindicated?" "No," I said honestly. "Just sad. All that brilliance, all that potential, wasted on greed and ego." Later, I learned Michael had been assigned to a minimum security facility in Nevada. He'd be eligible for parole in 6 years. His cellmate was another fallen executive who'd defrauded investors. How the mighty had fallen. A year after the divorce, I was invited to speak at a women's financial empowerment conference. Standing before 200 women, I thought about everything I'd learned. "Your value doesn't come from your title, your spouse, or your bank account," I began. "It comes from knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it." I shared the warning signs I'd missed: the isolation from friends and family, the financial secrecy, the constant belittling disguised as jokes, the moving goalposts of success that I could never quite reach. Get your own lawyer for any prenup, I emphasized. Know every account, every asset, every debt. Financial abuse is real, and it thrives in secrecy. But the most important lesson was about trusting yourself. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. That voice in your head saying something's wrong, listen to it. During the Q&A, a young woman asked, "Do you regret marrying him?" I thought carefully. I regret not seeing the red flags. I regret losing 5 years to someone who never truly saw me. But without that experience, I wouldn't be here, helping others avoid the same trap. The conference organizer later told me it was their most watched session ever. The video went viral, reaching women globally who saw their own stories in mine. I started a foundation with part of my settlement, providing legal aid and financial counseling to women escaping financial abuse. Jennifer Martinez joined the board. Even Daniel contributed, offering pro bono legal advice despite having left corporate law for teaching. The woman who'd been called a joke was now helping hundreds of others find their voices. Michael had tried to diminish me, but instead, he'd forged me into something stronger. 2 years post-divorce, my life looked nothing like I'd imagined at 32. Chief Marketing Officer at TechVault, board member of 3 nonprofits, speaker at financial literacy conferences. The woman Michael had called nowhere near his level was now invited to panels alongside Fortune 500 executives. I'd started dating again. Carefully, slowly. James was different from Michael in every way that mattered. A sustainable architecture entrepreneur who celebrated my successes instead of diminishing them, who insisted on financial transparency from day one, who laughed with me, not at me. "I Googled you before our first date," he'd admitted early on. "The whole Michael Lancaster saga. I almost didn't call because I figured you'd never trust anyone again." What changed your mind? I realized anyone who could survive that and still believe in building something better was exactly who I wanted to know. We took things slowly, joint therapy sessions to work through my trust issues, separate finances with complete transparency. No grand gestures or whirlwind romance, just steady, honest partnership. The penthouse had been sold. Too many memories. I bought a smaller place in Noe Valley, warm and bright, decorated with my choices, my colors, my life. The proceeds funded scholarships for young women entering finance. Patricia and I had lunch monthly, strategizing TechVault's future. The company had not only recovered, but thrived, its stock price higher than ever. "You know what investors keep saying?" she told me. "They trust us now." The Lancaster scandal was the best thing that ever happened to TechVault. Sometimes I'd receive letters from women who'd left toxic relationships after hearing my story. Each one reminded me that our worst experiences can become our greatest gifts if we let them transform us instead of destroy us. If you're reading this because you see yourself in my story, I want you to know something. You're not crazy, you're not overreacting, you're not too sensitive or unable to take a joke. Those feelings telling you something's wrong, they're right. Financial abuse is real. Emotional manipulation is real. The slow erosion of your self-worth until you believe you're lucky to have someone who treats you like you're beneath them, that's real too. But here's what else is real: your strength. It's there, even if you can't feel it right now, even if someone has spent years telling you it doesn't exist. Start small. Open your own bank account. Get copies of all financial documents. Consult a lawyer independently. Build your support network. Friends, family, professionals who see your worth even when you can't. Document everything. Every cruel comment, every hidden asset, every lie. Not for revenge, but for protection. For the day when you're ready to say enough. And when that day comes, because it will come, remember that leaving isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. It's declaring that you deserve respect, honesty, and genuine partnership. The path won't be easy. You'll have days where you question everything, where his voice in your head tells you you're making a mistake. But on the other side of that fear is freedom. The chance to discover who you are without someone else's contempt shaping your self-image. I won't lie and say everything will be perfect, but I can promise you this. The morning you wake up without dreading what mood he'll be in, without wondering what you did wrong, without shrinking yourself to avoid his displeasure, that morning makes everything worth it. You deserve that morning. You deserve that freedom. You deserve that life. Thank you for listening to my story. If this video helped you, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about justice and women's strength. Comment, "strength," if you believe in your inner power. And remember, You always deserve genuine love and respect. No one has the right to diminish your worth. You are enough exactly as you are. Until next time, this is Josephine Lancaster reminding you to never let anyone make you small.